Hey everyone, welcome to the Sustain the Range podcast. I'm Lauren, your host, and this podcast is a personal exploration of my experiences in everything ranching. From beef operations to training horses to sustainable farming and regenerative practices, we'll cover it all. Each episode features enlightening conversations with guests who bring their unique perspectives and expertise. Whether they're seasoned ranchers or first-generation farmers, we all share a common bond and deep appreciation for the land and the livestock we raise. Tune in each week for engaging discussions, inspiring stories, and practical insights from the ranching community, and let's embark on this incredible journey together. Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sustain the Range. This is going to be a solo episode this week, so I figured I'd just come on and just start talking to you guys about some things that have been going on in the last few weeks. And I'm still getting used to coming on here and just talking, because I still have those fears and doubts of nobody's gonna care what I have to say, or things like that, which I think, if we're all being honest, at some point we all kind of feel that way. So anyway, I just think that when we've got those thoughts, whatever it is, whether it's, recording a podcast, putting something up on social media, or going to speak in front of a group of people, that those thoughts are not true. And we have to remember that those are just the fears and the doubts talking. And for me, I kind of think even if I can just help one or two people through this podcast with whatever I share, that's good enough for me. So anyways, so what's been going on in the last few weeks? Gosh, so much. Things have been really awesome here at the ranch that I'm at. The cows are up on the forest, so we have been riding quite a bit, which has been a lot of fun. And one of the main things that I wanted to talk about was I attended a Curt Pate clinic last week. So for those of you who don't know who Curt Pate is, he is a renowned livestock handling clinician. He does clinics on stockmanship and horsemanship, and just travels all over the country and the world, I believe, to just teach people clinics and do demonstrations on colt starting and horsemanship and stockmanship, things like that. So I cannot say enough good things about this clinic that we were at. Curt was just such a nice guy, so approachable, and just really was super genuine. And everything that he was teaching us, you could really tell that it wasn't just telling us something to tell us, or telling us or teaching us something just because it sounded good, or that's, supposed to be what he's wanting or supposed to say, something like that. So I just can't say enough good things about him. And a lot of the stuff that he taught us, for me, was really, really cool, because it had a lot of crossover with horse training. And for those of you that I've worked a little bit with Mustangs and trained some, again, not labeling myself as a horse trainer, but have done a little bit here and there, and have trained a few myself. And so it was really fun to kind of hear him speak about and teach us, how to move cows and what the proper way to do it is and things like that. So I just wanted to share, a few things with you guys, for those that are interested, on some stuff that he taught us. And I won't go into detail on all of it, because I think that if you ever have a chance to go to a Curt Pate clinic, then you definitely should. He, like I said, just can't say enough good things about him, and just was so nice. And really, what was so nice is that he kind of hung out with us the whole time. And, when you're at a clinic like this, or you're meeting somebody that, of Curt's standing, who is just really well known in the industry, you aren't sure what to think at times, or you're not sure like how they're going to be or how they're going to act, or if you should, approach them or not, or things like that. And I just can't say enough good things about how down to earth he was, how willing he was to, answer our questions and just kind of get to know people and talk with us. So anyway, it was really great. But yeah, some of the things that I really loved that he shared with us was, his big focus was really like understanding livestock and how they think and how they live. So he talked about the 5 freedoms, which you guys can look up if you're interested, but it's kind of this idea about the 5 freedoms for an animal. So, and I think it's for an animal, or it applies to humans as well too. But anyway, we were talking about it more in terms of animals, but it was, the freedom from discomfort, freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from pain or injury and disease, freedom from fear and distress. And then there's one more. Okay, yeah, sorry. I just had to pause and look it up real quick because I wanted to make sure that I got it right. So it is the 5 freedoms for animal welfare. So again, freedom to ensure that they meet like their mental and physical needs for animals that are in our care. So again, freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, or disease, freedom to express normal behavior, and freedom from fear and distress. So we talked about that a lot, and one of the things that I just love so much about Curt's teachings was, the animal comes first, and how can we create a animal that is not happy but content. So we kind of had this big conversation around, happiness versus being content. And we had a really cool conversation with everybody in the room about just, do we want to chase happiness or do we want to chase being content? And kind of the consensus was that, a lot of us humans, we have this idea of chasing happiness. Oh, when I get here, I'll be happier. When I get the house, I'll be happy. When I get the relationship, I'll be happy. When I get X, Y, and Z, I'll be happy. And it seems like us chasing our happiness might actually be the very thing that's not making us happy. And so we really talked about like what does being content mean and how that can apply to us and how it can apply to our animals as well. So, what is being content? Well, being content, some of the first things that came up was like, having our basic needs met. And just things in terms of how we as humans can be content with ourselves too, not always striving for the next thing, while growth and self-development and wanting more out of life, I think is incredible. And I mean, coming from somebody who absolutely loves self-development and, has dreams and goals and things, that's amazing. I think we should all have those things, but how can we be content with the everyday? And I'll talk a little bit more about this after I share some more about the clinic, because I definitely have been thinking about this concept a lot, and I think trying to be content with where we're at now, but also knowing that we can still grow and change, and it's okay to want more, but not feeling like we are unhappy with where we're at right now. So anyway, so he just taught us a ton. And again, this is just going to be a very high level overview. If you have a chance to go to one of his clinics, please do, because I don't want to share a whole lot in detail, just because obviously he's much better at teaching this thing. So I don't want to try to reteach all of this stuff, but I just want to share, some really cool things. So yeah, one of the things that he said was really cool is, the first lesson in stockmanship is to learn what a content animal looks like. And how do I get them content? And we're talking about cattle. for the most part. How do I get my animals content while getting them to rebreed, gain weight, things like that. But the animal always comes first. So all the work that we do is and should be for the animal. And I think that can be lost sometimes, for sure. And we just always have to try to remember that everything that we're doing is for the animal. And the care that we provide. Once we put those fences up to domesticate an animal, or, whether it's a horse or a cow or sheep, goats, whatever, sheep. Yeah, whether it's sheep or goats, once we put those fences up, those animals are in our care, and they are our responsibility, to provide the best possible care that we can. And at the absolute bare minimum, it needs to be their basic needs. And so we talked a lot about that. And let's see, we talked about how stockmanship is born even before that calf is born. Creating a relationship with a human during pregnancy with a cow, just going out there and being around that cow who's carrying a calf, that bred cow. What are our interactions like with that cow? Because that all matters when we're talking about reproduction cycle and the mom's immune system and her health and getting that baby ready to be born. When we interact with that cow, that's all going to matter come calving time and beyond. So talked a little bit about that. In the first 3 weeks of life for a calf, that's extremely important in terms of their immune system. Obviously, for those who don't know, colostrum, when a calf is born, they really aren't born with an immune system. Sort of like humans, our immune system is developed during, pregnancy, but for a calf, their immune system is developed right after they're born. So for those of you who don't know, colostrum is extremely important for when a calf is born, for that calf to get up and start milking and nursing right away, because they get colostrum, and colostrum is an extremely important part of building that calf's immune system. So we talked about, how important the first 3 weeks of life are and how that calf builds up their immune system and their development. So if we're going out there and causing a lot of stress on the calf, moving them, if the calf isn't suckling, if we're giving vaccines, whether it's good weather or bad weather, whether we're castrating early on or not, all of those things cause stress. And we talked a little bit about how fear can really play a role in our cattle's lives. So when animals in fear, they aren't content. And when they aren't content in their environment, they aren't going to be healthy. They aren't going to gain weight. And that really all matters because it trickles down to profit for us when we're building a cattle business, and we want healthy cows. We want cows that thrive. We want to create an environment where we are caring for those cows and providing a really good life for them, so that at the end of the day, this is a business, and we want to produce a really good cow, and whether calf crop, whatever your business model is. So yeah, we talked a little bit about that, on how, to identify a content cow, whether, when you look out in the pasture, if a cow's head is up and they're alert, much like a horse, if their head is up all the time and they're looking around, those are signs of not being a content cow or animal. But if their head is down and they're eating, that's one sign that they're content. If you look out and the cows are laying there chewing their cud. And I just posted something on Instagram about this, because at the ranch that I'm at, we just moved all of the yearlings into the hay meadow, and I went out there today on a ride with the horse that I was on, and just going out to check on them, and more than half of them were laying down, just sitting there chewing their cud. And it was so cool to see, because that is a sign that they are content, that they're good, that they've eaten enough, that they can sit down, that they can relax, they can chew their cud, and, that everything's kind of working. So, we talked a lot about how to move cattle and different things like, Curt taught us 3 concepts, which was driving, drawing, and maintaining. And I won't go into too much about it, but it's basically a concept of moving the cow. So a cow, you want to be able to teach them how to drive. So there's a leader and a follower, and you work with those cows by, when a leader is designated, so there was one cow that kind of goes out in front of all of the others, and that's going to be your leader. And then when you're working with the cows and you want them to move to a certain area, you really let that leader start leading, and then all of the other cows will start to follow. So a lot of what we watched Curt do was not push or force so much as to watching their movement and watching their natural behavior and working with their movement, and how to get a cow to stop, and when they look at us, and having both of their eyes on us, and how to get them to switch eyes, and watching their ears, and how you can tell, where a cow might be going by where they're looking and where their ears are pointed, and things like that. So it was just really cool, because I just loved how much of it was watching their body language, but also tuning into our body language as well. Just like whenever you're training a horse, pressure and release, our body language, the horse's body language gives us so many signals on what they're feeling or thinking, or what they might be thinking, that we can really work with. So yeah, it was really cool. We talked a lot about things like balance points, and like I said, I won't go into too much detail because it's kind of hard to talk about it over a podcast. But another thing that was really interesting that I just love was when you can get a cow's feet to stop, then they are focused on you. And much like in horse training, there's a saying that when you control their feet, you control their mind. And same with a cow. If you can get that cow to stop and get both of their front feet equal weight distribution, that's when you've got their mind. And when you've got their mind, they're focused on you. So, he talked a lot about how an animal only has their mind on one place at a time. So we really have to remember that, because they can't be focused on a bunch of different things, where humans, we say we can multitask, and our mind may be able to focus on a number of things at one time, maybe not very good, but for an animal, it's good to remember that their mind is only focused on one thing at a time. So if you're trying to get an animal to move a certain way, if there's something up ahead or something behind them, or even in terms of just grabbing their attention, whether you want to grab their attention or whether you don't want to grab their attention, you remembering that their mind can only be focused on one place at a time, and also remembering that they make quick decisions. So if we're out there and we're trying to move a cow, or trying to get them to go a certain way or stop or whatever we're trying to do, if we take too long to make a decision, that animal is going to make a decision on their own, very much like a horse. If we aren't the leader in a scenario, if that horse can't look to us for trust and leadership, then that horse is going to take over, and they are going to be the leader, which will then come into, fight or flight mode, things like that. So yeah, I loved how there was so much of a crossover between horse training, and how we can move cows, in a very similar way. So we also, I loved, there was one point, during the 2 days where Curt really talked about not being afraid to make mistakes. And I think that I know for me, in the past, and still do at times, I'm definitely have been afraid to make mistakes because, and I think if we're all being honest with one another, then we've all been there at some point, right? We're afraid to make mistakes, and we don't want to look stupid. We don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing, or make a huge mistake. And although we don't want to make a big mistake, we want to make mistakes, but we want to learn from them. And that was the really big thing. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake maybe once or twice, but by the third time, you should have really learned it by then. And you don't want to make a big mistake, obviously, but sometimes it's going to happen, especially in a learning mode. And being able to be comfortable with making a mistake, we should really get comfortable with. And I'm talking to myself here because I know in the past, and like I said, still do at times, there can be times when I'm maybe afraid to make a mistake, but that stops me from doing something. And that isn't always a good thing, because if we don't try to do something, if we don't say, okay, I'm just all in on this, or we make a quick decision and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and maybe that was the wrong decision, but you know what? It's okay if it was the wrong decision. We did it. We jumped both feet in. And then if it was the wrong decision, what do we learn from it? And especially when it comes down to moving animals or working with animals, those little moments are so tiny sometimes, and a lot of the times they might be big blow-ups or something big might happen. But if we didn't try, then we will never get better. So that was a really fun little conversation that we had too. And another good reminder of, when we're moving our animals and when we're working with them, that we just want to do enough that the animal is focused on us and that their mind is with us. And not doing so little that the animal or the cows might be looking at us like we aren't important. So we really talked about this concept of like making sure that the animal is still respecting us. So when we ask them to move, we move, but also not creating fear either. So we want to make sure that we have that good balance in between there, where our animals still respect our presence and that they don't just see us and walk all over us and not listen to us. But we also don't want to go on the other aspect where we're creating fear in that animal. And I know I've definitely had some experiences and been around and had other experiences with other people that I've worked with, and trainers or whatnot, that you can tell when their animals are in fear and when their animals respect. I think there's a huge difference there, and I definitely have seen animals react to people where they're reacting out of fear. And another thing that we talked about at the clinic was, how do we get our animals to be in a thinking part of their brain rather than a reacting side of their brain? So the thinking part of the brain can equal growth. So if they're in their thinking brain, they're still, focused, but a good stockman will have that animal in the thinking part of their brain the majority of the time, where a reacting side of the brain is where their cortisol levels raise. So they create stress and they flee. They're in their flight zone and survival mode, and they can't shut it off. Whereas in the thinking part of their brain, they're still thinking and they're focused, but they are also able to be relaxed and calm, and going back to that being content and we are creating a content environment so that those animals' stress levels go down. And another cool thing about this too, when it comes to training animals or just being around animals, and even for humans, we talked a little bit about how stress is good sometimes. There is a good amount of stress that we all need to have, because even in terms of like regulating emotions, if we never get stressed, then we're never able to kind of learn how to bring ourselves back down to a calm state. And when there's a little bit of stress, for instance, working out, when we go into the gym or anytime we work out, we're creating stress on our body, but it's a good stress. And when we're done working out and we're done doing a really hard workout, we're tired and we come back to this kind of homeostasis level, and it feels really good. So we talked a little bit about how that is good for animals too, and that a little bit of stress can be a really good thing. So we talked about so many different things. And just on how to move, we learned, a little bit on how to move them in the chute and what are proper ways to do that and how to sort them, and did some fun little exercises on, now take out 3 cows out of the bunch, or 4 cows. Now pick a black one and a red one and run them down. There's a concept of stringing cattle, which I kind of touched on a little bit before that, but where there's a leader and a follower and they're kind of walking up a fence, and they really learn this from a very young age. So how do you get your cattle to string? So it was just really fun, and how to, stop the cow and get him to look at you, and then put both front feet down, equal weight, so that they're looking at you, they're focused, but doing it in a relaxed, low stress manner when appropriate. And again, everything is all dependent, because sometimes we need to add a little bit of hype. Sometimes we need to add a little bit more presence or things like that. One last thing I'll say was, it was pretty amazing to watch Curt move cattle, and there weren't any horses at this clinic. So he just mostly taught us on foot. And one of the things that stood out to me the most was, even when he was working completely by himself, with a big group of cows, out in the field, and watching him solo being able to move those cows, not once did I hear him yell out of the whole 2 days. Not once did I hear him yell. Not once did he, ram and jam them. Not once did he create fear in these animals. And he got them to do what he was asking them to do. And there was 1 or 2 really flighty ones, which I thought was really fun, because he never labeled any of these cows. Sometimes if you've been in this industry, you'll hear people say, oh, that cow's crazy, or that cow's stupid, or that cow's dumb. Not once did he say any of that. A lot of his terms was, for a really athletic cow or unathletic cow. So the athletic cow might be a little bit more hyper, it might be a little faster. And the unathletic cow is the, slower one and more docile. So those were the terms that he used, and I just loved watching that, because I've been around some operations now where yelling and screaming and ramming and jamming was the way to do things, and it never felt right. And again, we always want to have that balance, like I mentioned, where you still want to create presence, but you don't need to do it in this way where you're creating that fear in the animal, or you're yelling or pushing. And just as like a huge caveat, working around animals, and especially if you're working with an animal that might be a little bit more wild, there's always going to be levels of where you have to take that stress and where you have to really create a major presence out of safety. So I just want to make sure I'm saying that, because I'm not saying that we always have to have, or that we can never, do these things that are might be needed in certain situations, for our safety or for other people's safety. So, but again, just going back to what I saw here, and even there was a little bit of a flightier cow that was a little bit aggressive, at this clinic, and not, one time again did I see Curt mistreat that animal, but instead really worked with the animal and was still looking out for his safety and other people's safety and the cow's safety as well, but worked with the animal, to get him to go back into the shoe. And, it was really cool. So that was really fun to watch, because, we see people do something one way, or we're taught one way, and then we go to clinics like this and we see that actually it can be done another way, and it can be done, in a much more low stress way. Again, the majority of the time, there's always going to be certain situations where that isn't always possible. But, anyway, yeah, so, I'll kind of stop there. There were so many other things, but I just wanted to kind of take out the main points of that and really just talk about how incredible it was and how grateful I was to be there. We went to a ranch that I also posted on my Instagram. It was Red Wing Ranch in Gardner, Colorado, and they are doing some pretty amazing things there. It's woman owned, and most of their staff is women as well. So I got to meet some incredible, just badass women running the ranch, and it was so much fun to be able to meet them. And I hope to be able to go back there again. And yeah, so that was the clinic, and I ended up, renting a camper. Actually, I rented a camper to head down there because I brought the dogs with, and I just wanted to have them be able to, have like a place to stay. And, just because there was some other logistics where I just had to kind of have them, in a separate spot. So anyways, so I rented that and I brought the dogs down. I stopped in a town that was not too far away from the ranch, and I parked at, an RV park for the night, and went to a rodeo, which was really fun, and and then went to the clinic, and then came back on midweek. So anyways, it was a lot of fun, learned a lot, so appreciative of Curt's time and all of the knowledge and wisdom that he shared with us, and just being able to get to know him a little bit, and also super grateful for Red Wing Ranch and all of the people there that were just so gracious in hosting. And so what else? Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? That was pretty much it. I have been really, if those of you who don't know who Ed Milet is, I am absolutely obsessed with him. I think he is just an incredible human being, even though I've never met him. Maybe one day, I hope. But he is an entrepreneur, a businessman. He has an incredible podcast, but I have been listening, or just finished his book, The Power of One More. And I just want to share that because it's a really incredible book. Ed Milet is very, very successful, and he has built a lot of successful businesses, and just is really amazing to learn from as well. He is very strong in his faith, and through this book, The Power of One More, it's basically all about, I think he credits his success to the power of one more. So always just doing one more, whether you're in the gym and you're doing one more rep, whether you're at work and you're making that one last sales call after everybody's gone home, and how it separates you from the pack, and how that can really lead to just building confidence, perseverance, dedication, and I really love the book because, again, he really talks about how his faith has really been instrumental in his life, and he talks a lot about, personal stuff as well. But it's a really, really great read if you're into that, and I just wanted to share that. So I've been listening to him a lot. He's been like my mentor from afar, I guess, but I just really love his stuff. I also have been getting a little bit back into the Joe Dispenza stuff, and this is what I wanted to talk a little bit more about when I said that a little bit in the beginning, that, I believe that God and Jesus, and I believe that God created all things, and that includes energy. I think there's some misconceptions, or I don't even know if it's misconceptions, or some people that say, if you believe in God and Christianity, then you can't believe in, energies and, quantum physics or things like that. But I believe that God created everything. So he also created energy. And especially, if you're working with animals, animals work off your energy, and for anybody that knows that, they will understand this. Our animals, obviously, to some degree, they know voice commands and things like that, but your energy, your body language, it's a completely different communication tool, because we can't tell them what we want them to do. We have to show them, or we have to guide them, or we have to tell them in a different way. And many times, it's with our energy and how we're creating, even our voice tone or our body language and things like that. So, yeah, I had listened to a little bit of Joe Dispenza way back when, and some of his meditations and things like that, but I have really been getting a little bit more into it, and the reason why I'm sharing this is because, kind of his deal is that we attract the things that we want or that we hope for, and not getting into, and I'm not getting into manifestation. I'm not into that stuff. Used to be for a little while before I really came back to my faith, and a lot of it, when you get too into it, is just complete garbage. I believe that God, has a plan, and really am strong in my faith in that way. And I don't think that you can just manifest things out of thin air. But I also believe that when we create energy, we can attract good things in our life. So a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, if you guys don't know who he is, you can look him up, is that. And basically what I'm trying to say here is that I really have been on this idea of going back to being content with where I'm at now. And even though there's parts of my life that I want more and that I hope for more, relationship wise, marriage, family, I think on social media because I've been posting a little bit more on social media lately, and I've had a bunch of people comment saying, wow, your life looks so amazing, like it looks like a movie and things like that. But we only post the good things on social media, and I'm just not somebody that's gonna go on social media and when I'm having a really bad day and share and cry to everybody just because I want to show the bad parts. I'll definitely share and be open on here, but I also think there's kind of a little bit of a line there too, where I'm not always going to share the good stuff. I want to share the bad stuff. And I want to, even when it comes to ranching and agriculture, like we can have this very skewed view of ranching and horses and the romanticized version, but there's still those days when you're out fencing the entire day and it's buggy, or it starts raining, or just the really long, hard days, or when things just like plain suck. Those are those days too, and I am doing my best to share those as well. But I also think that when we look on social media as a whole, everybody is posting just like small snippets of their lives because that's what social media is. So we can get caught into the comparison mode or the trap where that person's life looks better than mine, but not getting the full story. And I just wanted to really share that part of it because I think that and for me, I'm really trying to focus on being happy where I'm at right now and being content where I'm at now, even though there are a few other parts of my life that I wish were a little bit further along, or I wish that, the marketing business that I have might be doing a little bit better, or I wish that I had a family, or I wish that I have found that person. And for those of you who know and have listened to my podcast before, that I, recently went through a breakup, and it's been really hard and it's been really tough, especially moving to a new place. I'm so grateful for the ranch that I'm at and, the people that I've met here and just the work that I've been able to do here and all that I'm learning and doing. But, there's other parts that are really hard too. And especially when we are in a place in our lives where we see other people have the things that we want, it can be really difficult, and we can tend to think, what's wrong with me, or why don't I have this, or why did God give that to this person and not me, and why is God withholding this from me, this part of my life, or I'm praying for it and he's not showing up yet, why, and sometimes we will get those answers and sometimes we won't. And so what can we do right now to be content and happy in the waiting season, if you're in a waiting season? And I know for me right now, I kind of am. And I think if we can just try to look at things day by day and not look 5 years down the road or 3 years down the road or 10 years down the road, because everything's always changing. And if you're somebody of faith, I just watched a sermon this morning actually about a similar topic, and it was just talking about how, if you believe in God, that he can give, he creates miracles. He can do anything. He's all powerful. So when you know that he can do things and you're asking for something and he's not giving it to you, we can get really disappointed. We can feel really sad. We can feel really angry and really question. And a lot of the time that might make us want to turn away from God. But instead, if we just pray to him, even if we come to him so angry and yell and curse, whatever you got to do, and in that conversation with him, there's still a part of turning to him even when we're mad and we're angry that still shows our faith. Because if we completely turn away from him, then we aren't even talking to him anymore. But when we turn to him and we, even through the hardest days or the midst of our anger or disappointment or just complete sadness or grief, and asking him, why is this happening? We're still displaying our faith because we're talking to him, and that's what he wants. He wants to have a relationship with us, and he wants us to be in constant communication with him. And I'm saying all this and repeating it to myself because I'm talking to me right now, because I need a constant reminder, because there have been many days where, things hit me, or, past memories come. And, for anybody that might be going through a breakup or just recently, ended a relationship, you have those moments where and you're doing something in the middle of the day and then something just reminds you of that person or things that you did together, and it feels like a freight train just hit you. But when we have those moments, we can turn to God, and we can also just remind ourselves that this relationship didn't work out because it wasn't supposed to. And if you're a person of faith, it wasn't in God's plan. And, whatever the situation is. And for me, it wasn't right. And I know it wasn't right. And, I have to cling to that and just keep looking forward and looking ahead, and not letting those moments get me so down where it just completely derails me. And there definitely have been days when it has, and that's okay too, but we have to grieve and we process, and then we move forward and we look ahead, and we going back to, kind of this Joe Dispenza, teachings and things like that, is we have to almost believe that we're already living the life that we want. And by doing that, we will start putting emotions and energies out into the world, and those emotions and energies, the good ones, will attract the things that we want. And so I've been really trying to remind myself of all of these things, and just learning how to be grateful for what I've got in front of me right now. And I've always had a really hard time with this, because you sometimes feel like, okay, how can I be grateful for this when I know that I want, these things so badly in my life? But how can we be grateful for the things that we have right now? Then if we can't be grateful for what we have right now, then when we eventually do, if and when we do get those things that we want, then when we are always going to be wanting more, is basically what I'm going to try to say. So even when we do get those things, like, we won't be happy then either. So then we're always going to be wanting more and wanting more and wanting more, and we're never going to be satisfied. So how can we, even if things don't look the way that you want them to right now, take even one or two things out of your day at the very least, and just be grateful for what you want right now. And even, when I was on a ride this morning with a horse, we were just trail riding, and I had the two dogs with me, and I could say, well, this isn't my horse, this isn't my ranch, I don't own these things, I wish that I had my horse back, I'm sad that she's not here with me. Or I can say, wow, like, I get to experience this amazing place, this incredible horse, that's new and is teaching me new things. I get to be out here with my dogs and just be happy for the day, and for the ride, and be grateful that I get to share these moments with these animals, because that is really important to me. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling a little bit per usual, but that's what I've been thinking about lately, and I didn't really have a plan on what I was going to share. I had like one or two notes, so I just thought that I would come on and start talking. Hopefully you guys found a little bit of, comfort or help in it, if you have been feeling the same way. I'm just, trying to share things, because if I'm feeling it, I'm sure somebody else is, and it's nice to know that we can all share in these things together. So anyways, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or any comments or anything like that, I always love to hear from you guys. So shoot me a message on Instagram. Lauren_Pidge, Pidge is my handle. Obviously you can find me on Facebook as well. And my Facebook name is just Lauren and then PETT. So I should probably get those both similar. But anyways, yeah, always let me know. And you can always just shoot me a comment as well at sustaintherange@gmail.com too, if you have anything that you want to share. So anyways, thanks for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. And we'll talk soon.